Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to dive into the story of the 1983 Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary at first glance, but has some surprising varieties and values that have captured the attention of collectors for decades. The 1983 penny is a really important year in the Lincoln Cent series because it represents the first full year of the copper-plated zinc composition. In 1982, the U.S. Mint transitioned from the traditional 95% copper, 5% zinc, and tin composition that had been used since 1909 to a cheaper planchet made of 97.5% zinc with only a thin copper plating. This change was made because copper prices were rising so high that it was costing the mint almost as much to produce the penny as the coin was worth. So, if you hold a 1983 penny in your hand, you're looking at one of the earliest examples of the modern zinc cents that are still made today. The obverse still features Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln, and the reverse shows Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design, which was used from 1959 until 2008. What makes the 1983 cent fascinating is not only its composition, but also its varieties and famous errors. One of the most famous is the 1983 double die reverse, often abbreviated as DDR. On this variety, the reverse lettering shows strong doubling, especially on the words United States of America, e pluribus unum, and the denomination 1 cent. This is not a minor variety, but a dramatic one, and it has become one of the most sought-after double dies of the entire Lincoln Memorial Cent series. Even in circulated condition, this coin can bring $50 to $200. In higher grades, it can fetch several $100s, and in mint state red condition, it can sell for over $1,000 at auction. Collectors also pay attention to off-center strikes and other errors from 1983, especially because the new zinc planchets were prone to striking problems. Clipped planchets, broad strikes, and die cracks can all be found on 1983 pennies, and these mint errors often add an additional premium. Another variety that draws attention is the 1983 D bronze transitional error penny. This is an extremely rare coin that was accidentally struck on leftover bronze planchets from before the switch. Instead of being struck on the zinc core planchets, these rare pieces weigh the old 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams. They are extremely scarce, and one of them sold at auction for over $15,000. If you ever come across a 1983 D penny that feels heavier, weighing it on a small scale could reveal one of the great rarities of modern coinage. Now let's talk about values for the regular 1983 and 1983 D pennies. In circulated grades, they are generally only worth face value. Billions were minted at both Philadelphia and Denver, with over 7.7 billion from Philadelphia and over 6.4 billion from Denver. However, in high uncirculated grades with bright red luster, these coins can command premiums. An MS-66 red 1983 penny might sell for $20 to $40, and MS-67 examples can go for several $100s. Denver coins also bring similar premiums at the highest grades. Proof coins were also struck at San Francisco with the S mint mark. The 1983 S proofs can be found with beautiful deep cameo finishes, and in PR69 or PR70 deep cameo, they can sell for $50 to $100 or more. These proofs are especially appealing to collectors who want pristine examples of the early zinc cents. So, the 1983 penny is more than just a common coin from the 1980s. It marks the full transition to the zinc composition. It has one of the most famous double dies of the series. It includes an ultra-rare transitional bronze variety, and it still offers opportunities for collectors to find mint errors and high-grade survivors. The next time you come across a 1983 penny, don't dismiss it as just another cent. Check the reverse for doubling. Weigh it if it's a Denver Mint coin, and look for errors. You never know when an ordinary-looking coin could turn into a treasure worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. That's the magic of numismatics. Sometimes the smallest coin carries the biggest story. The 1977 D Lincoln penny may look like just another small copper coin in your change, but it carries some interesting history and varieties that make it worth a closer look. The obverse shows the classic bust of Abraham Lincoln, first introduced in 1909 by Victor David Brenner, while the reverse displays the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, a design used from 1959 until 2008. If you study the reverse carefully under magnification, you can even see the tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial, making this coin one of the rare pieces in U.S. coinage where the same person is shown on both sides. The 1977 D was struck at the Denver Mint and carries the D mint mark just below the date. Over 4.1 billion of these coins were produced, which means they are extremely common in circulation, and most examples you find today will be heavily worn and worth only face value. But as with many pennies, the story changes when you start looking at condition, errors, and varieties. The composition is the traditional bronze alloy used at the time, made up of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, weighing 3.11 grams. This heavier copper feel makes them stand out compared to modern zinc pennies introduced in 1982. Because of this copper content, even a common 1977 D penny technically carries a small amount of intrinsic value tied to the price of copper. Although it is illegal to melt U.S. cents for their metal, collectors of the Lincoln Memorial Cent series often focus on high-grade examples. A typical circulated 1977 D is not worth more than 1 cent, but a coin preserved in bright red, uncirculated condition can bring far more. In grades like MS-65, values might range around $10 to $15, and at MS-66, premiums can jump higher, sometimes reaching $40 to $50. The real prizes are coins that grade MS-67 or better with full original red luster, which are rare and can bring hundreds of dollars at auction. Bag marks, weak strikes, and toning often prevent coins from reaching those top grades, which is why registry collectors are willing to pay strong money for the very finest examples. Another factor that makes the 1977 D Lincoln Cent exciting is the range of mint errors. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, and clipped planchets all exist for this date. A dramatic off-center strike where part of the design is missing can be worth $50 or more, while smaller off-centers or die cracks might bring $10 to $20. Collectors also watch for repunched mint marks, as the D mint mark was still being punched by hand at the time. A bold RPM variety can attract a nice premium depending on strength and condition. It's also worth noting that the late 1970s were a time when the U.S. Mint was working through quality control challenges. Billions of pennies were produced each year, and many 1977 D examples are found with softer strikes, particularly on the details of Lincoln's hair and beard. Finding a sharply struck coin adds to its appeal. Additionally, natural toning can add character. Rainbow-toned or beautifully patinated 1977 D pennies are often collected for their eye appeal, even if they're common otherwise. So in the big picture, most 1977 D pennies you'll encounter will be only worth face value, but the hidden gems are out there. The combination of high-grade red uncirculated examples, error coins, and mint-mark varieties gives this issue more depth than people realize. It's a reminder that even coins struck in the billions can have valuable survivors that stand out to collectors. The 1977 D Lincoln Cent also carries historical context. It was minted during the Carter era, at a time of rising inflation and changing economic pressures in the United States. These humble copper cents are a snapshot of the late 1970s economy and are still preserved in countless collections today. So whenever you come across a 1977 D penny in your change or in an old coin jar, it's worth giving it a second look. Check its color, its luster, its strike, and especially the mint mark. You never know when a simple 1-cent piece might turn out to be a high-grade treasure or an error variety worth far more than face value. The 1989 Lincoln penny may not seem special at first, but when you dig into its background, composition, varieties, and market history, you realize that it plays an important role in modern U.S. coinage. By 1989, the United States Mint had been producing zinc-based Lincoln cents for several years, after switching in 1982 from the traditional bronze alloy to the new copper-plated zinc planchet. That means the 1989 cent is part of the modern era, weighing just 2.5 grams with a composition of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating. On the obverse, Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln remains, a design that had already been on the cent for 80 years at this point. On the reverse is Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design, used from 1959 until 2008. If you look carefully at the memorial with magnification, you can actually see the tiny statue of Lincoln inside, making the 1989 penny one of those interesting cases where Lincoln appears on both sides of the same coin. The 1989 penny was struck in huge numbers, more than $7.2 billion at the Philadelphia Mint with no mint mark, and over $5.3 billion at the Denver Mint with the D mint mark. San Francisco also produced proof coins with the S mint mark, intended for collectors. Because of these massive mintages, most 1989 cents you find in circulation today are worth only face value. However, condition makes a big difference. Circulated examples are common, but uncirculated pieces with full original red luster can be collectible. In mint state grades like MS-65, they might sell for just a couple of dollars, but MS-67 red examples are much scarcer and can sell for $100 or more. The finest known coins in MS-68 red have sold for several $100s at auction. Proof coins from San Francisco with perfect, deep cameo surfaces are also popular, with PR-69 or PR-70 examples sometimes reaching $50 to $100. At error coins are another area of interest for the 1989 Lincoln penny. Off-center strikes, broad strikes, and die cracks can all appear on this issue. One of the most sought-after errors is the double-struck or misaligned die penny, which can bring $50 or more depending on the severity and grade. Collectors also search for dramatic die chips around the memorial or Lincoln's bust, as well as plating blisters, which are common on zinc cents from the 1980s and 1990s. Although the 1989 penny is modern and often overlooked, it represents the continued use of the copper-plated zinc planchet that defines the cent today. It's part of a long-running series that connects collectors with American history, from the first Lincoln cent in 1909 to today's shield design. The 1989 penny reminds us that even common coins can have value when preserved in pristine condition or when struck with unusual errors. So, if you come across a shiny red 1989 penny or one with a strange striking mistake, don't ignore it. Check the details, look for unusual varieties, and remember that among the billions of coins minted, rare survivors exist. Even the most ordinary-looking penny can sometimes turn into a collectible treasure.